Hello, hello, everybody. We are live right now. I have Juan. I know he's muted, and Stefan. And we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. If you're here, I see a lot of you in the chat already. Say hello, introduce yourself, where you're coming from. This is a global webinar, so we want to make sure we get to know where everyone's coming from. Juan is going to be our teacher for today. Stefan is going to be our amazing TA. And we are so excited you guys are here. Expect a little bit of a delay from questions, as all webinars. There is a little bit. And yeah, we're so excited that you guys are able to join us. This is Build Your Spotify with JavaScript. We'll get started around 1:05. I see some people going off in the chat. It is so excited that you guys are joining us. We have people from Berlin, Portugal, Amsterdam, Brazil, Paris. Okay, I wonder who has the most attendees here. Which country can represent? Is it going to be 305 for Till I Die? I know we're in Miami right now. Actually, I'm in New York, but this is the Miami crew here. We got a lot of people in the chat. This is super exciting. Do we have any alumni in the house? Let's see if you're Ironhack alumni. Just write in the chat, alum. Super exciting. Lebanon, okay. Paris near France. Let's see those alumni. Very exciting. I think we also have some current students. The current students here probably know Juan and Stefan. Juan, I'm going to unmute you. Tell us a fun fact, Juan.
Hey, puts me on the spot. Fun fact, my worst COVID habit is that I order Cold Stone very late in the night through Uber Eats.
But is that a COVID habit or is that the lifestyle?
That might just be a lifestyle, but now it's justified because of COVID, okay?
No, it's COVID.
And I have a couple reptiles. I don't know if I could show one.
Guys, Juan's gonna get his reptiles while everyone gets started and up and running, which I'm excited about. He's like Bill Nye. No, not Bill Nye. Crocodile Hunter.
No.
Let's see who makes an appearance today of the pets, the pet of the week. And excuse me, my dog might bark. He's a little loud sometimes. We're gonna get started in just a couple more minutes, everyone.
All right.
But introduce him.
This is Trico. I'm a Pokemon nerd, so named him after Trico if you know about Pokemon. He's a leopard gecko. He's got great spots and a really fat, really fat tail.
Does he run away?
Sleeping. He was sleeping, so he's like, I want to go back. So I'm gonna put him back.
Any Pokemon fans in the house? Where are you guys at in the chat? Awesome. Someone said he's beautiful, Juan. We're going to get started. Just a couple minutes. I'll be going on mute so my dog doesn't bark. We do have a link for you guys. There is no prep work needed, but here is the link to code along. It should pop up right here. There should be a green button that you guys can click. Get yourself set up there. If you're still just joining us, we're going to give it 2 more minutes till we get started and hand things over. For those that are just joining us, introduce yourself in the chat. Also, when you guys have questions, best practices are going to be to do it in the Ask a Question section. You'll see when you open the Ask a Question link, Stefan is going to comment on it, and that way it doesn't get lost in the chat. There are a lot of people in this webinar right now, so we want to make sure we get your questions answered. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. There is no stupid question. The gang is here to help you. Juan and Stefan actually took Ironhack together. Stefan took it in Ironhack Berlin, and now he's a TA in Ironhack Miami. So He's very international. And then we have Juan here, who took Ironhack 2. Was it 2 cohorts ago?
3.
3 cohorts ago, and he's been an amazing TA. You might have met Juan on the last webinar. What was it? Build your responsive web page. So that's the man behind the person answering all your questions. Like I said, guys, best practice, questions and answers. Please put in the ask a question. That's how Stefan is going to monitor them. Once he answers, I'll move them over to the answered section. And it looks like it is 1:05 on my end. Maybe it's 6:05, 7:05. Not sure what time it is where you're from, but we're excited you're here. So without further ado, everyone, I'm going to hand things over to Juan to kick things off and kind of set the agenda for today, and we'll get started.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so give me a thumbs up on the chat if you can see my screen now. It should say intro to JavaScript, right? So anybody, some feedback on the chat? If somebody can just do quick thumbs up. Awesome, perfect, great. And then Leonardo, I did see that you asked if this was like Visual Studio. Code Sandbox is, yeah, definitely has all those functionalities that Visual Studio has. So it's really cool. You don't have to download anything. You can just go to Code Sandbox and start from there. All right, and today we're going to be talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This webinar is intended for beginners. So if you're familiar with some of these concepts, you know, a lot of it's going to be a review to you. The JavaScript part of it is going to start closer to 2, so in about an hour. So up until there, it'll be a little bit more of a review today. And yeah, and hopefully if you've never coded before in your life, you'll have something really cool to show at the end of it, and we'll get started. And yeah, Stefan's gonna be helping me out. So any questions, just put them in ask a question and he'll help you guys out there. I'll try to do some pauses along the way. That way give you guys time to digest. Without further ado, let's get started. All right. So HTML. HTML is the standard markup language for web pages. It's been around for a very, very long time. You don't realize it, but anytime you go to a website, you're looking at an HTML document, right? And we're gonna see a little bit more of that. Before that, let's talk about the syntax of HTML. HTML has it's pretty simple syntax. It's wherever you're from, you know, whether you're from Paris, from Amsterdam, whatever language you speak, you have certain rules that you have to follow whenever you're writing a sentence in your own language, right? You have like a period at the end, you have to capitalize the first letter. So HTML has those set of rules. In this case, you have what we call a start tag or an opening tag. That's defined by these little, what are called chevrons, or what, when I was in elementary, that, you know, they told you it was the alligator bites. So you have the alligator bites or the chevrons, right? You have an opening chevron and a closing chevron. And then this whole thing would be your opening tag. This would be the specific tag that you want. In this case, this is a div tag, which is a generic division tag. And then you have a closing tag or your end tag. And the end tag looks very similar to the opening tag, except that it has a backslash in front of the tag name. And then here in the opening tag, you can also add attributes. And attributes are pretty much more information that you give to the browser about what to do with the information that you give it. And that might not make a whole lot of sense. So we're going to take here. This is in Spanish, just to remind me that the host from Mexico, he's the teacher from Mexico. He helped, you know, he helped provide a lot of the materials here. So I just wanted to give him a shout out, host from the Mexico campus. Thank you so much. So let's take a look at this. So here we have a body tag. A body tag, whenever you go to a website anything that you see in the website, any text, any pictures, anything is all inside of the body tag, right? And then inside of this body tag, you have the opening tag, you have the closing tag, and then inside of it, you can put more tags. And this is basically what HTML is all about. You have tags, and then you have tags that are embedded inside of other tags. This first tag is a very common one. It's an H1 tag, which starts for a heading tag, the most important heading. And here you would give a heading to whatever page you're working on, whatever type of app you're working on. If you think of an article, if you go to like a blog or something, like the name of an article would be an H1. It would be the most important heading. You have from H1 all the way to H6. H6 is the least important, right? And then here we have a P tag, which stands for paragraph. So here you can tell that when we use a P tag, since a paragraph is less important than the title, your browser knows that the title is going to automatically be bold. It's going to be much bigger. A paragraph is going to be much smaller. So to kind of sum that up, HTML basically tells your browser how to display information in a certain way. So on H1, you're telling your browser, hey, this is a title. The browser will make it bold. It will make it much larger. If you use a P tag, then you're telling your browser, hey, this is just a paragraph. So the text will be much smaller, right? And that's pretty much the basics of HTML. So this, from here on out, is just a matter of getting familiar with all the different types of tags that exist. I'm all these resources that I'm going to go through, I'm going to give them all to you at the end. So don't worry about it. So this is one of the resources that I'm going to connect. And here you can see all the tags that are available. And you can click on them and you can see what each one of them do. And we can go down here and you can look, for example, for the P tag, right? You can click on it and it'll tell you how it works and what it does. And I'm going to Google a lot of stuff through the webinar just because I want to make a point that you're not supposed to remember all of this. I can tell you for a fact that I don't know half of these by heart. You know, sometimes I need to use something that I haven't used in a while and I go and Google it, which is fine. All right. Continuing for that, we're gonna talk about CSS. CSS basically styles your page. So the way I like to think about it is HTML is the structure of your page. If you make the analogy to a house, HTML would just be very plain walls, no paint, no like maybe the floor is still just cement, nothing crazy, right? Very basic, very plain. CSS brings life to your website and it styles it up. It makes it look really nice. So this is the basic syntax of CSS. You have what we call a selector. There's different types of selectors. We're going to go over those. Right now, we're going to talk about the most basic selector, which would be the name of the tag. So here, I'm specifying that I want to change something in the way the paragraph looks. And then inside of here, this would be the property that I want to change. And this would be the value. And it's very important that you pay attention to the minor symbols, the syntax symbols. So you would do selector, opening curly brace, the property followed by a colon, the value followed by a semicolon, and then the closing curly brace. So if I were to use this selector, I can say, you know, font size 48 pixels, and it would make my font much bigger in my paragraph, right? So here we're going to talk about the selectors. I already mentioned we have, this is an H1. So one of the selectors is just the name of the tag. Then you have the property. In this case, I'm trying to change the background color of the heading, and then I can give it a value. When it comes to colors, you can refer to the values in 3 different ways. You can refer to them in hexadecimal notation, which is this notation here. You can refer to them by name, you know, if you want to just to use the color red, the color blue, or you can refer to them using an RGBA value. And we're going to be going over that once we start the code along.
It's an also from Ironhack.
Another type another type of selector is classes. Classes is that attribute that I kind of showed you guys earlier. The way you specify that something is a class
with JavaScript
is by placing a period and then the name of the class.
Just call Mark.
And let me see if I can mute Lisa really quick, because I think she's got some.
I know, that's amazing.
Yeah. Or if Stefan can help me out with that.
Funny because
thank you very much.
I'm arguing with Mike.
And then, so that's another type of selector would be a class.
I ended up moving to Miami.
Another type of selector would be an ID. Now, the difference between a class and ID is that a class can be applied to multiple tags. So you can have like 5 paragraph tags, and then you can apply the cards tag to all those paragraph tags.
1 second.
The other paragraph, or the other type of selector is an ID.
So that's when.
And then in the ID, this is a unique element, meaning that you can only apply it to one single tag.
Skills for students.
All right.
It's like a computer science.
Let's continue here. And then here is just a little bit a way to show you guys here.
Mike, that's amazing.
Let me see. So here you have an HTML. You have an ID attribute, and the name of that ID is called title. So if I go to my CSS, I can specify hashtag. That's the special syntax here. Hashtag title. So then CSS knows that this is an ID, and then I can specify to give this a color. So I'm saying I want the title to have a color of crimson.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys help with career
and all right,
like career placements?
The other one here is the class. Here I have a list, and then I applied the class of item to all these lists. So then I go to CSS here. Oops, I go to my CSS here, and I specify this is a class. This is the class name, which is item, and I specify what I want to change in the item. Here I wanted to change the background color to kind of black, almost completely black, and then I wanted to change the color to a lime green sort of thing, right? And then the generic one is what we said. This is just the name of the tag. You give it a height and a background color. Cool. All right. And yeah, and just like with HTML, once you learn the more common tags, you're ready to go. Same thing with CSS. You just have to be familiar with the most common types of properties. We'll go over some of them. And after that, you just have to be comfortable with, whenever you need something that you've never used before, just Google it, find out how to use it. I'll link all these resources. All right. Next up. So now we're going to talk about JavaScript, which is probably what most people are here for. So like with any language, the first thing you want to do is print hello world. In this case, I just did the way you would print to your console. Your console is not really something that the user sees. It's more for the developers. So here in your console, I'm saying console log, which is a function, and then console log hello Ironhacker. And if we were to go to, you can open up the console on any website. You can go to google.com, right? And then you can, if you're on Google Chrome, you can click on the top right, the 3 little dots, and go to more tools and go to developer tools. You can use the shortcut, or you can right click on the page and click on inspect. When you click on inspect, you can click on the tab that says console, and here you open up your console. And if we write what I just did here, console.log, hello, can't type right now, Ironhacker, right? And I press enter, it brings back to me, hello, Ironhacker. So this doesn't seem like much, but it's a really powerful tool for debugging once you actually start developing, and we'll see that as well. All right, so then we're going to talk about variables. Variables are basically, often people would hear them called, it's a variable is kind of like a box. It's a memory space in your computer. So you're creating a memory space that's going to hold a value. So here, the keyword to create that variable is let. There's 2 other ones that are var and const. For this webinar, we'll only use let and const. If we have time, we can talk about var. So here I'm saying I'm going to declare a variable. The variable name, so that memory space, the name that I'm going to give it is attendees, and then I'm going to assign it a value. So I'm going to assign it a value of 200. And then we can do the same thing again. Now here I'm creating a constant, which is still a variable. It plays by different rules, and we're going to see that in a bit. A constant normally does not change value. Once you give it that original value, it won't change. Unlike the let variable. A let variable can change values later on. Later on, if I want attendees to be 500, I can change that. But things like my name is Juan, it won't change. It's going to be a constant. And it actually will give you an error if you try to change it later on. So here I define that it's going to be a variable. I assign the name of the variable, which is my name, and then I assign it the value. Cool. I'm going to talk about some data types that JavaScript has. These are the 5 primitive types. You have Booleans, which is true and false values. And this might seem like super foreign to you if you've never done any type of programming. But if you start thinking about it, if you think about how you interact with web pages and just technology in general, you can start to see how Booleans would be really useful. Is the user logged in? No, then don't display his account. Is the user logged in? True, then display his account. So situations like that where Booleans can be really useful. You have other data types are numbers. These are pretty self-explanatory. Regular numbers that you've dealt with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing crazy. You have string values, which is basically regular text. You have undefined values, which is basically when you don't give a value to a variable. And then you have null. And if we have time, we'll get more into null. And again, I have resources for all of these. So, excuse me. Okay, so just as we're able to store like data into variables, we also have structures that allow us to give order to certain variables, to data. I'm sorry, we allow us to give order to data. And then one really common is arrays. And arrays help us store a collection of variables or a collection of data you can think of. So in an array, when I create an array, I can have multiple values in that array. So let me show you what that looks like. So here I create an array with the const. I give it a name of array. Maybe I should have named it something better, but just wanted to make a point. And then here, I'm going to save the value of 1, the value of Stefan, the value of true, and the value, and then another array, and that array is just going to have a value of 20. So an array can hold multiple values, unlike a variable, right? So I'm going to stop here for a sec. I feel like I want a little bit fast here. So any questions to this point about HTML and CSS mostly, or if anything in particular about JavaScript? Okay, nothing yet. Okay. All right, I'm going to continue. I know a lot of this is going to look a little foreign, especially if you're new to programming. It's going to make a little bit more sense once I start going through the examples. So bear with me a couple more minutes. So arrays have indexes. For example, here I have an array with 4 indexes. So in the indexes, you would expect it to start at 1, but they actually start at 0. So this is array at index 0 has a value of 1. Array at index 1 has a value of Stefan. And array at index 2 has a value of true. And array at index 3 has a value of an array that has another value of 20, right? Okay, and arrays have special methods that you can use, and they're really helpful. So for example, if I wanted to know how many elements I have in the array, which in this case I have 4, I can just say the name of the array, and I can say dot length, and that will return to me how many elements I have in the array, which in this case is 4. Right. And other useful elements, if you want to add on to your array, you can use the push method. And when you say array.push 0, this will add another element to the array. So it would be a 5th index, and it would have a value of 0. Right? Like a couple more slides, and then we'll get to the code along. And I think in the code along, things just start to come together a little bit more. Another structure that JavaScript has is objects. They're similar to arrays in some ways and very different in others. So objects can pretty much be anything. Normally, it's data that's related to one another. So here I created an object called Ironhack Miami, and Ironhack Miami has different properties or different data that are related to one another. So one thing with object is that you have to notice that it starts with a curly brace and it ends with a curly brace. And everything in between is properties of the objects. Or in other words, things that describe the object. So this Ironhack Miami object has a teacher. The teacher's name is Nico. The place where Ironhack Miami is located is Nico's house. This is not true, but it'd be pretty funny if it was. And then Ironhack Miami has several attendees. And then the attendees is an array of students or an array of attendees. And then each element in that array is an object of its own, because each person has different information about them, right? So this could be one student called Karen. Karen can be an iron hacker. Karen can have an age. Karen can have a gender. All of these things are information that describes Karen, or what we call them in objects is properties, right? So in comparison to arrays, objects have what we call dot notation. So if I want to reference the value of Nico in my object, I would use the dot notation, and I would say the name of the object, in this case Ironhack Miami, dot notation, the property that I want to access. In this case, I want to access Nico's name, so I would say dot teacher, and that would give me the value of Nico, right? All right, and then another way, not as common, but this you can kind of see how it's similar to the array, is by using the bracket notation. Instead of specifying the index, which is what we were doing with the array, we specify the name of the property. So here we say Ironhack Miami, the name of the property. You got to make sure you put it in quotations if you're using the bracket notation, and that would give me the value of the place property, which would be Nico's house. So this is not that common. You will mostly see people use the dot notation when it comes to objects, and the bracket notation when it comes to arrays. And the dot notation, if you have like nested information, in this case, we want to access Karen's name. Karen is in the attendees property. The attendees property is an array, and inside of the array, we have an object, right? So this is kind of confusing because it's so deep in there, it's nested in there. So the way we would access Karen's name would be the name of the object, the dot notation, attendees, right? So this whole thing is an array. If we want to access the first element of the array, we use the bracket notation. We specify the index, which is 0. And then this whole thing now is an object. And this object has two properties, one name, one iron hacker. And if I want to access the name of Karen, then I would say dot name, and that would give me Karen. All right. I know it was a lot of stuff here. So we're going to get to expressions. Expressions are basically just operations that return a value. You're very familiar with this. One of the most common thing would be arithmetic operators. If we have an expression that's 3 plus 5, this would return a value of 8, right? This is, if you've ever taken any sort of math class, you're probably very familiar with this. 5 minus 10 is -5, and so on. right? So we can have these expressions that return a value. We can assign them to our variables. So for example, we can create a variable called const result, and we can set that variable to the result of 10 modulus 5. And modulus 5 is pretty much the remainder. When you do 10 divided by 5, you get 2, you have no remainder. But let's say you had 10 divided by 6, you would have 1 with a remainder of 4. So modulus is kind of a weird one to understand, but the takeaway from this is just that you can have an expression that returns a value, and that value can get assigned to a variable. All right, and then the very last topic that we're going to be talking about is going to be functions. And functions help us not repeat code. In programming, you often hear the term DRY, D-R-Y, which stands for do not repeat yourself. Don't repeat yourself, right? And that's because repetitive code is hard to maintain. It's not optimal. So that's where functions come in. And if you think about it, every day in your life, you use functions. So I'm going to go over a simple function example, and then I'll make some references to real worlds where you probably used functions before. So the way a function, the syntax of a function, you first have to literally specify that it's a function. So you type function, you give the function a name, in this case add, and then you open and close the parentheses, and then within the parentheses, you can have parameters. And parameters are pretty much, you can think of them as placeholders for values that you will pass to your function. And that's going to make a little bit more sense in a sec. Then the next part in the function is you open the curly brace and you put in what you want your function to do. In this case, the function is going to add the number 1, the parameter 1, and the parameter num2. And it's going to return the result. And then to finish off your function, you close the curly braces, right? So this on its own doesn't do anything. For you to actually run a function, you have to execute the function. And the way you do that is by specifying the name of the function, then placing the parentheses, and then passing it any values that the function is expecting. So here, the parameter num1 is going to receive the value of 1. So num1 is going to be equal to 1. And then num2 is going to receive the value of 4. And then what's going to happen inside of the function is that I'm going to create a variable. That variable is going to have the result of num1 plus num2, and then it's going to return it. So it's going to return the value of 5. So I can use this function to give a value to a variable. For example, I can say constant add result, and I can say this is equal to whatever comes back from this function execution, which in this case it would just be 1 plus 6, and it would come back as 7. And this might seem like a really simple example, but if you think about it, like every time you go to the bank and you go withdraw money, it's probably more likely than not there's some sort of function called withdraw. Withdraw would take in the customer's debit card number and the amount that they want to withdraw, right? And then it would have some code that goes to your bank account and it actually withdraws that money and it changes those values. Other examples, kind of like when you make a phone call, there's probably a function and it takes one parameter call, which is the phone number. And then that phone number is what inside of the function, it would use that phone number to make a phone call, right? So this is the very last thing that we're learning today. Up to here. All right. Okay, so up to here, I hope I haven't lost too many of you. I know, yeah, I'm gonna finish off with this and then we'll start with the code along. Maybe you've already looked a little bit on it, but I'm gonna finish off with the DOM here. Now, we already said that HTML is like your structure of your house, right? So picture your house with absolutely no paint, no floors, no nothing, right? No furniture or anything like that. Then CSS would be, the styling, the aesthetics, the paint, the wood floors, all the furniture. And then JavaScript would basically be used for any behaviors that your website would have. Or if we continue with the house analogy, JavaScript would, if you have like a faucet, CSS would make the faucet look nice. HTML would have given you the structure for the faucet, and then JavaScript would actually make the faucet bring water once you turn it on. It's anything to do with behaviors of your website. And one thing that allows us to interact, for JavaScript to interact with the structure, with the HTML, is this thing called the DOM. So DOM is basically an interface that helps HTML and JavaScript communicate with one another. And one really basic concept that you have to understand about the DOM is that it creates a tree of your HTML file. So your HTML file, which we've already seen a little bit of in the coding examples, but we're going to go over it here. So here we can start looking at the HTML structure. This very first line tells the browser what type of document to expect. I don't know why Siri is talking to me right now. So this very first line, when your browser receives an HTML file, it tells the browser that it's about to receive an HTML file, right? This very next line, this HTML tag, inside of this tag is where all your other elements are going to go. So the HTML tag is basically a container, right? Container for all other elements. That's what the HTML tag is. The lang attribute tells the browser that the type of language that's going to be used in this document. In this case, I told it that it's going to be in English, right? The head tag is where all your metadata is specified. And metadata is going to sound weird, but metadata is basically data about data. And I'm going to explain a little bit more on that right now. So here we have the meta tag, and this meta tag has an attribute called charge set, and it says charge set UTF-8. And what this basically means is it tells the browser, hey, this HTML document is going to be able to use any characters, punctuations, or symbols that come from this character set. So if you have, like, for example, those who are from Hispanic countries who use, instead of the regular N, they use what you call the ñ. So these symbols, you're able to use them in this HTML document because you said that this HTML document uses all the characters, all the punctuations, and all the symbols that are specified with the UTF-8 character set. Sorry. And UTF-8 encompasses almost all the symbols. This is like the standard. You're going to see this in almost all websites. It encompasses almost all the symbols, all the punctuations, and all the characters of the world. So this is a really common one. Another, I think, a newer one would be 16, which has even more symbols. So, there's different, if you think about when you're writing in Hindi or things like that, they have like very strange symbols. So, but if you add this character set, you'll be able to use those symbols in your website, and the browsers will be able to show those symbols, right? So, charge set, this specifies the characters, the symbols, and punctuation the site will use, right? This very next line, it basically makes sure that your website will scale properly on all devices. What do I mean by that? So if I have, let me open this here. So you can click on this top right button to get this in full screen. So I'm going to click here. It's going to open a new tab. And now I'm going to see everything that I have in here in full screen, right? So if I have scale 1, you can come here to this page and you can open up the developer tools. Go to more, go click on the 3 dots, go to more tools, go to the developer tools. And here you can specify on the top left corner, there's a little, and this is for Google Chrome. It might look differently if you're using another browser. But for Google Chrome, on the top left, there's a little symbol that looks like a phone and then an iPad behind it. And you can click on it. And if you click on it, up here at the top, you can specify which type of phone you want to see. So this will show you what your website will look like on different devices. You can choose an iPhone, you can choose an iPad, you can choose a S5, right? So if instead of telling it that I wanted to scale evenly, let's say I told it that I wanted to scale by 5, right? And I save that. Now, if I go back here and I remove it from this, and then I go back here, you're gonna see that it should be it should have gone a little bit bigger. It's not gonna scale proportionately. So you just want to make sure that this, and it's probably not letting me do it in Code Sandbox, but this should always be 1. That's pretty much the takeaway here. If not, your website's gonna look weird on different devices. All right. Now we get here to the title tag. This will be the title of the document, and it will be displayed in the tab. So right here I have, this is the title of my document is JS intro. So if I go to here, I see that in my tab, I have right here it says JS intro. If I change this to, you know, thank you for coming or something like that, right? And I save it and I come back here and I refresh this, then at the top it's going to say thank you for coming, right? All right. Oh, I know what okay. And just so you know, I was doing the comments the JavaScript way. But if you want to write notes or take notes while we're going over this, or in the future, if you want to write notes, the way you make a comment, you see how this is showing up here? This shouldn't be showing up. I don't want my website to have this. I just want this for me or for anybody who looks at this. And you can make a comment by doing the chevron, the opening chevron, exclamation point, and then hyphen or minus sign, and it'll automatically finish it off for you, which is another 2 more minus signs and a closing tag. And here you can place comment here, right? So I'm going to comment this out because this shouldn't be something that we should see. And I'm going to save it, and it's going to go away. And here we go here, data, right? And I messed this one up too. Sorry about that. Perfect. Use. Okay, perfect. All right. So I hope this HTML thing is making a little bit more sense now that we're actually using it. So again, the head tag is a container for all your metadata, and the metadata just gives you information about the data that you're going to be displaying. Now we're going to get to the body tag. And the body tag is the meat and potatoes of your website, right? This is everything inside of the body tag is going to be inside. Anything inside of the body tag is what the user is going to see. So I have a title here. I can have a paragraph tag. Cool thing about Code Sandbox, you can type the tag that you want. So I can type P, and then you press enter, and it'll automatically make the opening tag and the closing tag. And you just got to start typing here. So here, this is a small paragraph, right? And if I save it, you can save using, if you're on a Mac, Command S. If you're on a Windows or Linux, Control S, or you can hit File on the top left, and you can hit Save. and it'll tell you the shortcut right here. I'm going to do Command S, and I'm going to see my paragraph here. All right. So is everybody comfortable with HTML? I hope so. Some thumbs up, hopefully. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Maybe I lost a couple people. Okay, yes, awesome. Awesome, thank you guys. Yes, all right. So HTML is making sense. So I'm gonna start actually making a little bit of what we want. I'm gonna go back to the DOM. I just felt like maybe this was already too much information, so I want you guys to see it live, and then we'll get back to the DOM once we finish building the HTML and CSS. So right here, we're gonna be making a Spotify player, or it's more of a fake. I call this Spotty fake. That's probably what I'll change the title to here, right? Spotty fake. And then here I'm gonna have, we want the user to select a song, select the song, and then I'm gonna introduce you guys to some other tags. So I'm gonna introduce you guys to a label tag. You don't realize it, but you're very familiar with a label tag. A label tag is used to specify what type of input you have. So here, a really common one would be like a label tag that says password, and then accompanied with the label tag, label specifying what type of input you have. Right here, you would have an input, right? An input, I think, did I put this right? Yeah, there we go. So this, I'm gonna save this, and you're gonna see my label is password, and then I have a little box, an input field, right? So an input tag is an input field for the user to type their password. This is my real password. Don't use it, or you can get all my money. All right, so this is what a label tag and an input tag is. So I'm gonna use these to tell my user that I'm gonna say click here to upload songs. Okay. Yeah, let's go like that. Too many exclamation points. Really cool shortcut for Mac. I think for Windows, it's the Windows key and period. For Mac, it's Command Control Spacebar, and you have the little emoji, the emoji keyboard come up, and at the top here, you can type what you're looking for. So I can say I'm looking for some music symbols, music emojis, and I'm gonna choose this one, and it's gonna add it there. So I'm gonna save this to see what it looks like. It says click here to upload your songs. Awesome. So now I want an input field, right? Input, input, and then inside of the input field, I'm gonna actually place it inside of the label tag, and you'll see why in a little bit. I could have done it outside as well, but I think it would make more sense to have it here. Inside of this input tag, instead of a text, I don't want the user to type something. I want him to upload something. So instead of the type being text, I want the user to put in file or files. I think it's file. Yeah. I'm gonna save this, and if I save this, you see that the input tag changes, and now it changes to choose a file. All right. So if I click on that, it'll open up my Finder or your File Explorer if you're on Windows and stuff, and it'll let you choose different files. It'll actually only let you choose one file, but in this case, we want to be uploading multiple songs. And so for that, we can use another attribute, and it's called multiple. And this way, we're telling the browser that this is an input field, and this input field is going to receive not text, but it's going to receive data file. It's going to receive files, and it's going to receive multiple of those files. Okay, so let's save that. And now here we'll be able to choose several files and upload them. We don't want to do that yet. Let's finish off with our HTML here. And In addition to this, we want somehow to be able to listen to the songs that we upload. And for that, we need what is called an audio tag, right? An audio tag has an attribute called source. And source would be, if you download an MP3, right? It would be like the name of the file, the MP3, or something of that sort, right? In this case, I don't want to hard code. In other words, I don't want to always be the same MP3 file. I want it to be whatever file I upload from input, whatever file that user uploads from input. So I'm going to remove the source tag for now, right? Or I can just leave it empty if anything, so we can be aware that it's there. I'm going to save this. Notice that if I save the audio tag, you're not going to see anything. Another attribute that the audio tag has is called controls. If you save this, if I had a song here, I can control it just by using play and moving the volume and changing, rewinding and fast forwarding here. But we're actually going to make our own custom controls. So I'm going to remove this attribute here, but just be aware that it exists if you wanted to use it instead of making your own custom. All right, so far so good. Everybody's looking good so far. I see in the chat. Okay, so now after the audio, we're gonna have the buttons that I said we're gonna specify. We're gonna use a div tag, and this is a generic tag. It doesn't do anything, but it's really helpful for when you want to group certain tags together and you want to style them a certain way. And that's what we want. What I want is I'm going to use a button tag now. And then this button is going to be for rewind, so previous. I'm going to save that. I'm going to see how it looks. Now I see a little button that says previous. I'm going to copy that 3 times. And this would be, play or pause. And this would be next or something like that. But let's make it a little nicer. Instead of previous, I'm going to use the emojis. I'm going to say, let's see, next, rewind maybe. Rewind, something like that. There we go. So rewind. I'm going to remove this one. This one is going to be play, right? I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to say next. Next, or I think I had it somewhere here. I don't want to go through all these. I'll find it in a sec. I remember what it is. I'll leave next for now. Okay. And now if I see it, now I see the little next. I see this. Let me see if I have the other one here just so we can move along. Right here. Okay, perfect. So now we have 3 buttons, right? Like I mentioned, I want to style these 3 buttons later on. So I'm going to give this whole division that has the buttons in it, I'm going to give it an ID, the ID attribute, and I'm going to call it, just buttons. That makes sense, right? And each button, I'm going to give it also an ID, because later on we want to be able to choose the buttons. So this is going to be previous. This is going to be an ID of play. And this is going to be an ID of next. Awesome. Okay, and up to here, this is what our page looks like so far. Not super pleasing, but we're getting there, right? Because the HTML is not supposed to make it look pretty. It's just supposed to structure the content that we're going to have in there. All right, so now we're going to get to some of the fun part. I'm going to give some of these, I'm going to give this label a class. Let's use a class for this one. I'm going to say file upload. For this one, just because I want to change it later on with the CSS. So I want you guys to see the regular tag, how we do it with a tag, and how do we do it with an ID. And then in addition to that, I'm going to give this input tag a name attribute. That way I know how to reference it later. And I'm just going to call it songs, right? Because when the user uploads his songs, that's what's going to be there. All right, so I'm going to save this. All right. Now, that's pretty much it for the HTML that we're going to use. Now we're going to create our CSS our styles. And for that, what you want to do is you want to click on this Explorer symbol. It's like a little page with that's folded in the corner in Code Sandbox. And then here, you're going to see this come up. It's going to show you all your files. Right now, we've only worked with the index HTML file, and now we want to create a new file. And you can just hit on this little icon that says new file. If you hover over it, I'm just going to call it styles.css. Not for any particular reason. I could have called it whatever I wanted, as long as you have .css at the end. All right, I'm going to create that, and then I'm going to close this back up just because I don't want it to be in the way. And here, let's write our first CSS. So I'm going to target the body tag, right? So I'm targeting this body tag that has everything inside of it. So that's my selector. I'm going to open the curly braces, and I have the closing curly braces. And then in here, I'm going to specify the property that I want to target. I'm going to say that I want the background color. Let's say I want it to be like an aqua or something, right? And then I have to make sure I put that semicolon at the very end. I'm going to save it. And you're going to see that nothing happens. And you're going to be like, what the heck? Something should happen. The background should look aqua or something like that. And the reason for that, this is a really common bug that people get, is that we have these two independent files, but the index.html file is not aware of this file. So we have to specify that we want the HTML file to use this external style sheet, right? This is the technical term. And the way we do that is in the head tag. We can go right after the title or anywhere in the head tag, really. And we're going to type link, press enter. So a link tag is used to specify the external style sheet that will be used. Right. So here I have the link tag. I have the relation attribute. It tells the HTML page that this is going to be a style sheet. And here I have an href. And the href is going to be the location of that style sheet. So for the location, this is going to look a little bit weird if you've never done any sort of programming, but index HTML, everybody should probably be familiar if you're using a computer with a folder structure, right? You can go to a Finder, or you can go to the File Explorer, and you can create a folder, and then inside of the folder you can have files and other folders, and so on and so forth, right? So you can think of like our this JavaScript Spotify webinar live. This is my main folder, and inside of that folder I have these 4 files. So here, if you're not familiar with file paths, a really easy way to get started is by pressing period \, and it'll show you all the files in the parent folder. So the parent folder in this case for index.html is this one. This is the parent folder, and inside of there, these are all the files that we have. And I want the styles.css. So I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to save. And the moment I save, I see that my background turns that aqua color. All right. So we're already starting to see how we originally made the structure with HTML. Now we're going to start making it look a little bit nicer with the CSS.
Could you increase just a tiny bit?
All right. Have I lost anybody so far there? Is everybody good so far? Thumbs up? Or just say yeah? Or an emoji? Increase the size, somebody said. Okay. This should be pretty simple here. Much better? Yes? Or here? Okay. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So here we're going to start with our CSS. So background. So like I mentioned, when it comes to colors, you can specify them in 3 different ways. You can say the name of the color. You can use the RGB value, or this time around, I'm going to use the hexadecimal value, which I'm going to do kind of like a black. 1C. This should be fine. I'm going to save this. I'm going to come here. I'm going to refresh. And now you see that you have like a kind of like a dark gray background, which is fine for now. But the only issue is that we can't really see the text too well. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And I think I made another mistake here with comment. Sorry about that. Come back here. So now I want my text to be a different color so it does a better contrast. So the attribute for that would be called color. And then here, I'm just going to say the color of the font is going to be white. And I'm going to save that. Come back here. I'm going to close this for now. I'm going to refresh. And now I see that the font is white. The background is this dark gray. Cool. Starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to do a couple more things. So right here, it might be kind of hard to tell, but let me zoom into this a little bit. But here you can kind of see that there's some spacing between the word and the very left side of the browser, right? And that's because the body tag has some default CSS applied to it. One of them being margin. So margin is the space between your element and the next element. So in this case, the H1, the body tag has a margin, so the H1 is going to be slightly separated from that body tag. So if I come here and I say margin 0 to override that, and I save it, and I come back here, I refresh, you see that now it's flush. Now the text is flush with the body tag. All right, so that margin is not there anymore. Another really common property that you use is this overflow property. And for overflow, I'm gonna comment out for now, but I'm gonna select the H1. So that's gonna be my selector. And I'm gonna say font size. I'm gonna say font size, I don't know, 72 pixels. This is gonna be super big. Remember, property, colon, value, semicolon. Save this, go back here. We're gonna see that this is gonna be huge now. And now I'm gonna say that this H1, I'm gonna give it a border. I'm gonna say that this border is solid. It's gonna have a one pixel. It's gonna be red. Let me save that and see how it looks. So you see this whole thing with the border, this is my H1 element. And you see my selected song in here. Now I'm gonna bring down the height and the width of this H1 element. Okay, so I'm gonna say, I don't know, height 50 pixels, something really small, so I can show you guys how overflow works. And then width, maybe 50 pixels as well. Save that, come back here, refresh. Now I see that my H1 element is here, it's this box, and then the font inside of it, it's overflowing outside of the H1. So here we can say overflow hidden, and then that way, if I refresh now you're going to see that anything that flows outside of my H1, if it's bigger than the actual size of the H1, is going to be hidden. I can, another one, it's going to be scroll. So now if I refresh here, the select a song is bigger than the H1, but now I can actually scroll into it and see what's inside of there. And you can kind of already see how this can be helpful. Sometimes you'll see websites that don't have that overflow hidden feature, and then something might be bigger than the actual body tag, and it'll kind of look weird. I've seen it a lot with like nav bars. So that's just to kind of show you. So I'm going to apply this to the body. Let's say overflow hidden. Okay. And again, I have resources to all of this in another doc that I will provide to you guys at the very end. Okay. And I don't want this for my H1. It looks terrible that way. One more thing that I'm going to do before I continue here Let me refresh. Whoops. All right, now it looks normal again. I don't really like the font here. So really easy way to get a new font is to just go to Google Fonts. You can Google Fonts. It's normally the first link. Make sure it says fonts.google.com. Click on it here. Click OK. And here you can either browse different fonts or you can just search. There's one that I recently became familiar with is Jost or Host. I'm going to click on this one. I like it. I'm going to see all the styles that they have in it. Oh, it looks really nice. Awesome. I kind of like this regular 400. So I'm going to select this style. And then I'm going to click on a little right panel is going to open up. I'm going to click on embed. And it's going to already give me this link for me. So you can link multiple CSS styles to your page. It doesn't have to be just one. So I copied this link. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to my index HTML and I'm going to place it again in my head tag. Right? I'm going to save it. I'm going to come back here, pay attention to the text. It does nothing because I forgot to actually apply it here. That's my bad. So the way you change the type of font is font family, and then I can use the host family now. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back here. Now if I refresh, you're going to see that it looks like this. I kind of like it a little bit more, so we'll keep it. Okay. Everybody good so far? I think so. Okay. All right. So from here on out, it shouldn't be that much more of CSS. Instead of the H1, I'm going to select the input tag and I'm going to say display. I'm going to use another property called display none. Now I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh and pay attention to the input tag. If I refresh now, I don't see it anymore. Even though I don't see it anymore, it's still there. It's just not visible to the user. So it's still inside of my HTML, just not visible to the user. So if I click on this label now, if I click on it, I can still see this little pop-up that the input gave me. I just won't see it there. And I like it a lot more like that. I think it looks much nicer than the little choose a file thing that's default, right? But the input tag is still there. Okay, so this is a really useful one. Finally, we're gonna finish off by styling the label a little bit. So right now, the label is just kind of sitting there. So let's see what we can do about that. So the label has a class called file upload. So I'm gonna copy that class. I'm gonna specify that my next selector is a class. So I'm gonna say period, that tells CSS that it's a class. And then I put the class name, so file upload. All right, I'm gonna save that. And then in the file upload, I'm gonna change the background color, so it can contrast with our own background. Say background color. And here I'm gonna use the RGBA values, right? This is the other way to specify colors. So I'm gonna talk about. So I'm just gonna say 0, 0, 0. Pretty much gonna be a black. And then alpha is the opacity of this color. So 1.0 would be, it's not opaque at all. Like there's no opacity applied to it at all, right? It's just a pure black. And now if you hover over it again and you bring down the opacity, you see that this fourth value changes. So this is more transparent, right? So it's fully transparent. So I'm gonna come here and I'm just gonna give it an opacity of 0.4. I'm gonna save that. Let's come back here. Let's refresh. And now you can clearly tell where the label is located. It's right here. So the user knows that he should click within this black background to be able to upload the songs, right? One more thing that I want to change is going to be the cursor. So a cursor is a property and I'm going to change it to pointer. You're going to see what that does in a sec. I come back to spotty fake. So right now, if I hover over the label, I have my regular cursor. If I refresh with the new cursor pointer, when I hover over it, you see the little finger pointing show up. So that lets the user know that he should be clicking in this area, or he's clicking in the correct area. All right. Let's go back here. We're gonna get to the JavaScript soon. We're almost done with the CSS. Okay. I think somebody says, how will I get the code? I'm gonna provide the code at the very end to everything we've done. So I'm gonna put it in the chat, and you guys are gonna be able to reference it whenever you want. Okay, so a couple more things. I'm gonna use the display property again, but now I'm gonna use the flex value. And flex gives us access to a bunch of cool other properties that are really useful. Right? Before flex existed, you had to be able to like center things or position them a certain way. You'd have to do like position Y, position X, and things like that. So flex avoids all that, and it makes it a lot simpler. So the minute I apply this flex property, if I refresh now, you're gonna see that now this label has a width of the entire screen, so it's 100% of the whole entire screen. And now with that, I can change the height and give it a little bit more height, and maybe say like 200 pixels. Now if I refresh, now it has a little bit more height. I kind of like this better. Now let's say I want to center this text right here in the very middle. So with the display flex property on, now I can use another property called align items. You can say align item center. I'm going to save that, come back here, refresh, and that centers it horizontally, vertically, I'm sorry. So from top to bottom, now it's centered. And now I can use another flex property called justify content, which is right here. I'm going to say center. I'm going to save that. I'm going to refresh. Whoops. Refresh, and now it's certain it's centered horizontally. So align items was vertically, justify content was horizontally, and now it looks a lot nicer. I kind of like that a lot more. All right, and that's pretty much it for that. Just one more. I think I just wanted to do the buttons. I think it's the only thing that's missing, right? So we have this div tag with the ID of buttons, and inside of here we have all these button elements. So we can go to the CSS. The way we specify that we want to select an ID is by clicking, by typing in hashtag and then the name of the ID. I just called it buttons. Open up the curly braces, and this is a little trick to center things inside of a container. In this case, the container is the div tag. I'm going to say text align center, right? I'm going to save that, and if I go here, my buttons were originally all the way to the left. If I refresh now they're going to be in the very middle. Right? This is, I think, looking a lot better. So we already saw how. So just a quick recap. So without this style sheet, this basically looks like that, right? HTML is just a structure, no nice, no color, no good positioning, nothing. Now with the style sheet, we can refresh and it looks a lot better. Okay. Now we're going to start with the JavaScript. The way you can apply JavaScript to your HTML site is by using a script tag. So I'm going to use a script tag here. It gives me the opening script, the closing script, and then inside of here I can place my JavaScript. So Java place JavaScript here. Okay. Now, with that said, I'm going to finish talking about the DOM. We kind of already said, you can kind of already see how we have this DOM structure already. We have a body tag. We also have an H1. Aside from the H1, we have a label tag. Inside of the label tag, we have an input tag. We also have a div tag. So then the DOM, it gives us a special way to interact with the JavaScript to interact with HTML. And this was some of the old ways that you can interact with it. You can say get element by tag name or get a name by class. Now the more newer way is just this one function called query selector, and it allows us to do the same thing what before used to take 3 different functions. Now you can do it all in one, right? And we're gonna see a little bit about how that works right now. So right here, I can grab, for example, this H1. I can grab it using DOM manipulation, and I can say document. Document is talking about the whole HTML document, all of this, right? So I can say document dot query selector. That's the function here. And then here in query selector, you have to put the quotes. Doesn't matter if it's single quotes or double quotes. Both will work. Just gonna do double quotes. And I'm gonna tell it that I want to grab this H1 element. So I say query selector and grab the H1, right? And I'm gonna get that whole element and I'm gonna place it in a variable. So I'm gonna say let variable. So this is a terrible name. Or let's say let title equal to document.querySelector H1. All right, and now with this, now I can manipulate this H1 tag. So I can say title on click, right? And then I'm gonna say once you click it, this is what is called an event listener, which most of the time event listeners are gonna be like actions that the user does. The user can hover over a title, the user can click on something. So I'm gonna say once the user clicks on that, it's gonna call a function that says, I don't know, change title. Okay, this function hasn't been created yet. I'm gonna create it right now. So remember the way you create a function is by saying function, the name of the function, in this case, change title. This function, after that, you have to do open close parentheses. This function is not gonna take any parameters. So we're not gonna be passing any values. And then inside of this function, we're gonna say title dot inner text. What is the inner text of the title tag? The inner text would be this: select a song, right? And here, instead of saying select a song, I'm gonna say now, instead of saying select a song, now it's gonna be equal to hi, using the DOM, right? Okay, right? So I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna refresh. I'm doing this, I'm sorry. I'm gonna refresh, and now if I click on this, I clicked on the title and it changed. Hi, I'm using the DOM. And here's where you can start seeing how JavaScript gives behavior to our website. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this as an example, and I'm just gonna create a couple variables for some of the things that we're gonna wanna manipulate. Okay, so one of the things that we're gonna need is gonna be an array to hold our songs that we upload, right? I'm gonna need another variable. So I'm gonna say the keyword or the reserved word, the keyword is let current song is equal to 0, right? Because if I have one song here, you know, song1.mp3, this is gonna be index 0. So later on, if I wanna reference this song, I can say songs bracket notation at index 0. I can say index 0 or I can say current song, right? So this is gonna come in handy later. After this, I'm gonna create a couple variables that are gonna select different tags in our page. So I am gonna have one for the title. I'm gonna say document dot query selector and open the parentheses, open the quotes. This is gonna be the H1. Another one that I'll have. Let's see if there's any questions. I think cannot see what you typed. Can't see. Could you put up your code on screen? I'll copy this. I'll copy the HTML. If anybody needs the HTML, I'll copy this here. Okay, so that's the HTML so far. If anybody is coding along, and this is the HTML inside of the body tag, and then this is going to be the CSS. If anybody wants to copy the CSS and put it in, that's all in there. Okay, in case anybody maybe misspelled something along the way. And now we're working with the JavaScript. So I'm going to have something to select my input. Document query selector. Okay. And if you are like getting really hung up about trying to do the code along, don't worry about it too much. I will provide the code for you, and this is all being recorded. So I would say it's more important if you look at what I'm doing and try to understand it than trying to code along with it. But if you feel comfortable trying to do the code along, that's completely fine as well, right? So here, this input tag is just going to be an input. I'm just going to use the input label. I have another tag for the label, and these are basically all gonna look the same. I'm gonna have one for the label, one for play, one for previous, one for next, and one for the actual player. So this is gonna be the label. This is gonna be for the previous button. This is gonna be for the play button. This is gonna be for next, and this is gonna be for the audio tag. So let me change it here. This is label, this one. So these selectors, you'll notice that with query selector, the selectors are the same as CSS. So here I just say H1. If I wanted to use the class or the ID, for example, for the previous button has an ID of previous. So I can do the hashtag previous. I'll do the same thing for play, hashtag play. I think that's what I called it. And then this one has a ID of hashtag next. And then the player is just going to be the audio tag. This is what's going to actually play the music, right? Which is going to be this audio tag right here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to skip to something real quick because we're going to start playing the music very soon. And so this player, it has selected the audio tag, right? Which is this whole thing here. So the audio tag has different attributes. One of them is the volume, right? So I can say player.volume, and the full volume would be 1, right, or 1.0. I'm gonna put it down to like 0.3, just because when you start playing the music, if you don't have headphones on, or if you do have headphones on, it's gonna blast your ear. And you're not gonna be happy with that. All right, so I'm gonna save that. So far, so good. And then we're gonna do some event listeners, right? So we're gonna say input.onChange. So when the input changes, originally the input is empty. Once the user uploads something, in other words, the input changes, then we're gonna have it call a function. A function is gonna run, and when the functions, let's just call it get songs, right? We're gonna do another one with next dot on click, and then that one's just gonna hit. We're gonna have a function probably that just says like next song or something, right? And then we can have previous dot on click. So when they click on previous, it'll go to previous song, right? This okay, so this is good here. So let's start with our first function. Is going to say get, we're going to say function. That's the keyword, the reserved word. Get songs. Open the parentheses, close the parentheses, then open the curly braces, and then here's where our code is going to go. And then when the input changes from having nothing to having the songs that I upload to it, that's gonna have an event, right? So here I can say my songs, which is the array that I created earlier. This is originally supposed to be empty. My songs is now going to be equal to the event dot target dot files. So the event is that what happened. What happened was that I uploaded files to input. The target is input. And then what am I targeting from the input? I'm targeting the files that I uploaded. So here's where the console log is really strong. I can say console log songs, and you can see that I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna open up the console, which again, you can either right click, click on inspect, and then click on console, or you can click on the three dots here, more tools, and then developer tools. Let me just comment some things out. We have not created this one or this function or this function, so it was giving us an error. That's why I was saying next song is not defined. Right? And then now when I click on this, I clicked on the input tag, I select the songs that I want, and then I click on open, and now it does a console log. In other words, it prints to the console, and I see that it prints an object. I know it's an object because I have, or a file list, and then inside of this, inside of here, I see the three files that I selected, right? And these three files, each one of them is an object. You can tell it's an object that has a couple properties, one of them being the name property. This is the name of the song, and it has a bunch of information about it. So this is working correctly so far. So we're on the right track. So let me go back here. I hope I have not. All right, so I hope everybody's good. I'm just checking the chat. All right, cool. Perfect. We can't see the, somebody, the photo of your webcam is on the bottom of the photo. Okay. Is everybody able to see what I'm typing so far? Some people are saying that they have issues. Is everybody able to see it right now? Just give me a thumbs up if everything's good so far. I'm going to send out everything that I have inside of my script so far. Is all of this, in case you're coding along. And I'm going to paste it here. Oh, it says my message is too long, so I have to split it. Let me try this now. Enter. Okay. Until line 62 or 63. Yeah. Let me copy this. I cannot see line 63. So I send everybody everything that I have so far in my script tag. Okay. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Somebody said to scroll down. So I'm going to move it up like this. Okay. So I'll just go over it really quick. Some people are saying they can't see it. So I created a function called the get songs. When my input changes, in other words, when I upload the files, that's a change. It had no files, now it does have files. It's going to call the function get songs. That those get songs is going to take the event as a parameter, and then here in songs, songs is now going to be equal to the files that I uploaded. I can console log the songs, and then I'll see that when I click on here and I upload the files, I'll see that over here. Okay. Okay. So far, so good. So when I finally upload the songs, now I'm going to change my label. Remember, my label is this thing here that says click here to upload songs. I'm going to change my label, and I'm going to say label.inner text. I don't want it to say click here to upload songs again. Now I want it to say songs. I want it to have the current song, which is the first song. It's gonna automatically get the first song. I'm going to say dot name. So I'm accessing the name property of that song, right? Because the song is an object. It has a property called name, kind of how I did before with Ironhack Miami, where Nico was the name of the instructor. So I used the dot notation, name, and then I'm going to use, if I just do this, I'm going to save this. I'll show you guys this first. I'm going to click on upload. I'm going to select the songs. I'm going to open. And as soon as I open, it should have changed the name, but it didn't. And why? Did I do something wrong? Oh, I forgot to refresh. Whoops. That's what it is. Sorry about that. Refresh. I have to refresh because I opened it on a separate tab. If you're just working on, if you're just working on one page, it went away because I had to zoom. But if you're just working on this, it should refresh on its own. But since I'm not doing that, I have to refresh every time. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to click open. And when I click open, it changes the label. The label now changes from click here to add music to the name of the first song, which is this name, not the greatest name in my opinion. I don't really like the fact that it has .mp3 at the end. I kind of want to change that. So a really popular method is called slice. So slice basically cuts off and returns a portion of the text, of the string that you want. So I'm going to say slice starting at 0. So starting from the first letter, I want you to slice -4. So it's going to, if I have something that says, let me scroll up a little bit. I know some people were saying that. I'll keep scrolling. I'm going to say, so if I have a string, so let's string that says hello, and then if I were to use slice, if I say string.slice, and I say start at the first one and do like -2, this is now going to return to me a string that says hello with these last two sliced off, right? So what this is going to do is going to slice off the last 4 characters of the song, which is always going to be .mp3. These are going to be the 4 things that are going to slice. All right. So that's good. I hope everybody's still with me so far. I'm going to change the title as well. I'm going to say the inner text of the title is, instead of saying select a song, it's going to say Spotty Fake Player. And then maybe we'll do like a little emoji or something. We'll do this one. All right, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh. Somebody's saying, where is the variable defined? I will show you where the current song variable is defined in a sec. So when I click this, I select them all, I open, and then the label changes and my title changes. Cool. It's looking pretty good. Current song, I defined it up here. Current song and the songs array are up here at the very top. Okay. So far, so good. Now, as soon as I get the songs, I want it to start playing the song right away. So as soon as I upload the songs using the input, I want it to automatically play. So I'm gonna call a function called play song. It doesn't exist yet. I'm just about to make it right now. I'm gonna say play song. I'm gonna say function. This is the keyword, the reserve word. They both mean the same thing. Function, the name of the function, which is called play song, open close parentheses, open close the curly braces. And here in the first song, I'm going to say let song. This song is different from songs. Songs is all the songs. This is just one song. So remember I mentioned before that the audio tag takes a source. And the source is like a URL, like, you know, the URL.mp3 or something like that, right? So we have to create that. We have to create that so the audio tag can run. So the way you create that, it's going to look very weird. I'm going to have links to all of these so you can reference them back later. Just a little, we're have a little bit of a time constraint. So I don't have time to go into super detail about it, but you're going to say URL.create object URL. And you're going to tell it, so this is going to create a URL from a file that you pass it. And in this case, I'm going to say songs bracket notation, because songs is an array, and I'll say current song, right? So this is going to pass it the current song, that file, and this is going to create a URL using that file, right? And it's going to be a temporary URL, because the moment you refresh the page, it's gonna disappear, right? So, but as long as the page isn't refreshed, that's going to be fine. So we have that there. The next thing we want to do is I'm going to, again, make sure that my label has the correct inner text. So same thing that we did here. I'm going to do it here because this only gets called, this function only runs when I upload the files. Let's say I click next song and then I start playing it. I want the label to change to the next name of the song, right? So this is change label to the name of the song. This is change title to change title. I'm just gonna leave change title. Change this title to this, right? And this get temporary URL for MP3 file, right? And then here, after I do that, now I can say player. Remember, player is my audio tag, right? Player is equal to my audio tag, and I'm gonna say player dot source. Okay, player dot set attribute. I could have probably done source too, but I'm gonna do it with set attribute so you guys can get familiar with another method. Set attribute, open the parentheses. Anytime you call a function or method, you have to make sure that you open the parentheses. And this is going to take two parameters. The first one is going to be the attribute that I want to set. In this case, I want to set the source attribute. And I want that source attribute to be the URL of the song. Okay. So now this audio tag is going to be whatever URL I get .mp3, right? And then after I get it, I'm going to do some other aesthetic changes. I'm going to say play.inner text. So the play button, the inner text of the play button is no longer going to say play. It's now going to show as a pause. I'm going to say, whoops, say pause. It's now going to show a pause button, right? And then I'm going to say player.play. And that's going to tell the audio tag to start playing the song that I just gave it. Okay. And now the very last thing that I'm going to do, let's hold off for there. Let's see if this works now. So let's save this, what we have so far. Let me take off my headphones so you guys can hear it.
Juan, you're actually muted. I don't know if you can hear me. Juan?
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can
Anybody
hear you
want to
now.
give me a thumbs up? We can hear you. Sorry about that. It looks like when I disconnected my headphones, it changed my audio settings. That's fine. Sorry about that. Let's go back here. Lisa, if you can put my main screen back to, if you can make the main screen again. There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. So basically all I didn't really code much. All I wanted to show was that the song is working. You should hear it for yourself. If you're doing the code along, it should be working. So I'm gonna send the function that I've done so far, these two functions. I'm gonna send it in the chat here. Too many characters. Crowdcast not letting me send you guys the information here. So this is the first function, and this is the second function. Cool. All right. Cool. Awesome. So after I upload and I start playing the song, now I want to set it so that the next time that let me switch these around. So I set the source and I start playing that MP3 file. Then I change the play button. Now it's no longer going to say play. Now it's going to say pause. And now I want it so that the next time that the play button, the next time that it's clicked, I want it to pause the music. So this is going to be another new function. We're going to take a look at that one right now. Again, you say function, give it a name. This is going to be pause. Open parentheses, close parentheses, open curly braces, close parentheses, close curly braces, and our code is going to go here. So here, this can be a little bit of a challenge if you guys want. If anybody wants to attempt it themselves, if anybody wants to attempt this part themselves, go ahead and do so. I'll give like a second while I drink some water. My throat's kind of dry. Okay, so now after the song is already playing, the next time you hit the play button, which is now going to look, now it's going to have this pause symbol. It's going to call this pause function. And in this function, I'm going to first change the inner text again of the play button. And now it's going to say play again, right? Now it's going to have this again. After I pause, I wanted to change it to show play again. And then I'm going to say player dot pause, which is a method, right? And since it's a method, I have to make sure that I put these two open and closing parentheses. And I think I might have forgotten to mention this, or I might have, is the parentheses actually executes the function or the method. When you leave this off, so for example, here I said play on click, you're gonna call this function. I don't put the parentheses here because if I put it there, the moment that I put it there, this will execute right away without the user having to click. If you remove it, this will only execute once the user actually clicks. It's really important. Pretty common to get a bug like that. And now I'm gonna say play.onClick. When they click on it again, it's gonna play. What did I call this? This is play song, but I don't want it to do all this. I just want it to play the current song. The current song. I just say play current. I'm gonna save here. I'm gonna see if this works. So I'm gonna make my console a little bit smaller. I have to refresh. You might not have to. Click on upload. Upload all these MP3s. It starts playing the music. I can pause it. I can play. I can pause and play. It says play current is not this. We haven't defined it yet. Oh, so we have to define this before we can actually make it to work. So after we pause, we want another function that's gonna make it play again. Here, we're going to pretty much do something really similar to this, almost identical, right? So we're going to copy this. I don't want to retype code. I'm going to paste it here. Now the inner text is not going to be this. It's going to be the pause again. And once you click on play, it's going to show you if you want to pause it again. Instead of pausing it, it's going to actually play, and then on click, and then it's going to switch the on click to pause again. Right? And it's pretty much going to be toggling between, so switching back and forth between these two, right? If you click on pause, now you're going to see play, and next time you click on it, you're going to run this function. If you click on play, now you're going to see pause, and next time you click on the button, it's going to run this function. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come here. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to upload these files. I'm going to click on open. Now I'm going to click pause, play, pause, play. Awesome. So it didn't pause without to call the function name. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go over the trigger again. So the pause and play is working perfectly. So what I was mentioning before is to execute, in other words, to run the code that's inside of a function, you would call the name of the function or the method, and you would put the parentheses. And then so let's put a note here. So function or method or method. So I'll put function name parentheses. This executes the function function right away. Right away. And the page loads, when the page loads, right? So as soon as you open the page, this will execute it right away. If you do it how I did it here, this will only execute when the user clicks. So that's the difference. If I had said pause with the parentheses, it would execute it right away the moment the page loads. If I leave it off, it will only execute the function when the user clicks. So this is the difference between these two. Let me put this here, put it here, and I'll put this. Okay. All right, we're almost done. I think we only have like 2 more functions left. Okay, now the only thing we really have left to do is the previous and the next feature. And those are pretty simple. You can try them out right now if you feel comfortable. I'm gonna create a function. I'm gonna call it, I think I already gave it names, right? Next, I'm gonna say next song. I gave it names up here, right? I had commented it out. So when you click on next, it's gonna call a function called next song. When you click on previous button, it's gonna call a function called previous button. So, and these are almost gonna be identical. So when you click on next song, what's gonna happen is that the current song variable is gonna increase. And you can increase if you wanted to. The shorthand way to increase is by saying plus plus, and this would increase. So originally, current song is equal to 0. So if I say current song plus plus for the first time, now this is going to be 1. Another way to write it, if that's kind of confusing, is you can say current song is equal to current song plus 1. So current song is now equal to the original value of current song, which is 0 plus 1. I think this looks a little bit cleaner if we do plus plus, but just so you know, you can do it as well. You can do this as well. Current song is equal to current song plus 1, or another way to write it, or you can have, this is another way to write the same thing, and plus equals 1. So all 3 of these are the same thing. So it's gonna go to the next song, and then I'm going to call the play song function. Right, so once current song changes, it's going to call this play song function. Play song is going to go here. It's going to create the source that we need for the audio tag. It's going to create it. It's going to change the label to the name of the new song. It's going to set the attribute of the audio. It's going to start playing it, and it's going to change the text and the on-click event for that play button. Okay. Let me save that here, and let me go here. Let me refresh. Let me try. It's going to give me this error here because I have not defined. Let me just define it really quick. Function previous song. Okay. Now it shouldn't give me that error anymore. Okay. So now I click. I select all. I click on open. And then if I click on the next, it changes the name. Awesome. Click next, it changes the name again. Awesome. This works. I can play and pause. Awesome. Now let's work on the previous button. And the previous is pretty much going to be the same. So it's pretty much going to be this, but now we're going to subtract, right? So it's going to say this would be -1 and then minus equals, and it'll play the song. So pretty similar. Save that, refresh. Okay, select here, select all the files, open. I'm going to click on next. I'm going to click on next. I'm going to click on previous and previous. Awesome. This works. All right. This is pretty much, this all works well now. There's a couple other things that I think we have a couple minutes for. I'm going to let Stefan handle the questions, and then I'm going to show you a couple extra things that are not really part of the webinar, but I think it'd be cool if you guys start thinking about them. One thing that we didn't go over, again, it wasn't part of it, but I have a couple minutes, and I think it'd be really cool if you guys at least are aware that these things exist, is conditions in JavaScript, conditional statements. So a really common one is an if statement. So what you can do is you can type the word if followed by two opening and closing parentheses. Here, I'm going to put my condition. Then I'm going to put open and closing curly brace. And then I'm going to drag all of this inside of this if statement. And what I'm going to put in this condition, and if you think about, again, if you think about everyday technology that you use, think about, again, going back to the withdraw function of a bank. If this was withdraw money, it would say if the balance, if the balance of the account is greater than or equal to the amount to withdraw, then actually withdraw the money, right? Then you would withdraw money, right? So only if this condition is true will this piece of code run. So what I'm going to do here, the reason why we should have this condition here is because we have to think back to the very beginning that songs is an array. In this case, I'm only uploading 3 songs, meaning that current song can only be one of 3 values. It can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2. So I want to make sure that if current song is 0 and I click previous, that current song doesn't become a negative value, right? So what would happen if that happens? Let me comment this out really quick. I come back here. Let me refresh, upload my songs, and I can pause and play. If I click on previous, now it's going to give me an error. On top of that, current song is going to be -1. If I click again, current song is -2, right? And I'm going to start getting these errors. So now if I want to go back and actually play the second song, we're at -2. So I'm going to have to click once, I'm at -1 again. Click once again, now I'm at 0. And then finally, when I click again, I'm going to go to 1. So this is not the greatest of user experiences. So this condition, we can do a condition here that says, pretty much if the current song minus 1, if the value of this is greater than or equal to 0, then I want you to run this. So that way we can make sure that current song never goes below 0. And we can save that here. We can come back, we can refresh, we can select our songs again. And now if I try to put previous, it won't let me. I'm trying to click on it. I don't see any errors, nothing. Now if I click on next ones, it takes me to the next song. Awesome, it works. So this is really good for error checking, making sure that that you don't get like the error that we were getting, avoiding things like that. And we can do the same thing for the next song, right? So we want to make sure that if this plus 1, we want to make sure that it's less than the length of the array, right? The length of the array. In this case, I'm using 3 songs. So the way you get the length of the array is by saying songs.length, right? I went over this in the materials, but just in case you forgot. So this will give me the length of the array. The length of my array with 3 songs is 3, but my highest index is actually 2, right? Because my index starts at, your index starts at 0, and then it doesn't start at 1. So that's why I say less than and not equal to, because I don't want it to equal to 3, because that would not exist in my array. So we can do this and then put the closing curly brace. Okay, make sure we indent this properly. Okay. All right, this is equal to 3. Beautiful. All right, and we still have a couple more minutes. So while Stefan is asking some questions, and there's always multiple ways to do this, but while Stefan is answering questions, I want to show a couple more things that I thought would be cool. Once we select the songs, once we actually play the song, what I also wanted to do is I wanted to change the background color. So I'm going to say I don't want to just change what it says in the text. I want to change the background color. So we can say label.style .color, and then I'm gonna I had an array that I had made. I made another array. Let me copy this array here, and it's an array of colors, right? So I got this colors array, and it has all these colors. So I'm gonna say label.style.color. The label, remember, it's this text here, right? So I'm gonna say label style.color, and I'm going to say it's equal to colors. And we can either put a random index here, right? We can put like a random hard-coded value. Or if you want it to be random every time, this is a method from the math class. It's math.random. This gives us a random value between 0 and 0.9999, right? But our indexes are whole numbers. So we don't want this to be a decimal. We want it to be a whole number. So one thing that this is commonly paired up with is another method called math.floor. Let's say, so I want to round down. That's what floor means. Like that's what this does, is it rounds down a number. So if instead of having math.random, if I said 1.3, round down, it'll round it down to 1. So I'm going to say round down whatever decimal this gives you. However, the highest value that this goes to is 0.999. So it's always going to round down to 0. To change that, I can multiply this by the length of the array. So now this is going to be a value from 0 to 2.99999, right? All right, it doesn't show it. This will be from 0 to 2.9999999, so on, right? And then it'll round it it'll round it. So then the only options that it can give me is 0, 1, or 2. So I can save that. I can come here. I can refresh. I can select all the songs. And as soon as I select them, I see that the color changes. And every time I click next, the color is going to change again randomly, right? So it kind of changes really abruptly. So this is my mentor and friend, Nico Tzika's. He loves doing this, and I love it too. We're gonna talk about the universal selector. This star selects everything. So it says I'm selecting everything on the page, and I'm gonna use what is called a transition. A transition, you can give it, transition can take I think 4 values. I'm only gonna use 2 of them. So I'm gonna say transition all. So here, normally what you would put is a property. So you can say background color, you can say color, you can say font size, right? Or you can say all, and that way it'll transition anytime there's any changes to any sort of property. And then you can specify how long you want the transition to last. So I'm gonna say 2 seconds. So let's see what this does. So what this does is I'm going to refresh. I'm going to click on add, select all of these, and then it slowly transitions the color. I click next. It's kind of the same color. I click next and it transitions to blue. And you could probably tell a little bit better if we do it for the background color. So I'm going to do the same thing now, but now I'm going to do it for the background color. Background color, save, come back here, click, select all, and now you see that we have this transition. I click on next, you see that the background color is changing and the color of the font is changing. So pretty cool. So shout out to Nico for that. Thank you. You've taught me a lot, man. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna link everything right now to you guys. I'm gonna give you the link to this one that we did live. So let me copy this. This is the live one right here. This is the one that we did live. And then the next one that I'm going to give you is one that I documented. And I put a bunch of resources in there and a bunch of comments in case you want to code along and see that one. So both of those are going to be available in the chat. And that's it, guys. I went a little bit over. Sorry about that. All right. Awesome.
Oh, I'm back.
Sharing.
Can you guys hear me? Fine. The one who could not figure out. Shoot.
We're Hey, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you guys had fun. I hope the CSS, the transitions at the end wasn't too much. I just thought it'd be a cool touch, make it a little bit less boring. And I know that we went a little bit fast, a lot to cover in 2 hours. But you can definitely rewatch it again and try doing that at your own. You know, I would definitely challenge you guys to like make more edits to it, make the CSS nicer, you know. One thing that I forgot with Code Sandbox is that it automatically deploys it for you. So I'm just going to share my screen one quick second here, and you can actually send this to like family members and stuff right away. So if you encode Sandbox here, if you copy this link right here, you can send this to like families and friends, and they'll be able to pull it up on their browser, and it's already all done for you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Just wanted to show that last little bit.
Can you guys hear me this time?
And I know Lisa's probably saying, thank you guys so much for coming. It was awesome. It was amazing. You'll probably be hearing from me on email. Something like that.
I know sometimes, Juan, it's hard. Like, I don't know why.
For Karen, I already put the links to the coding. Let me link them up again so you can have that. Karen was asking for it. Give me a second, Karen. I put them in the chat, but they get lost, so I'm going to put it as a question so you guys can see it as a question. All right. Okay. Karen and whoever else is asking for the links to the code, I'm gonna put it as a question and say, final links to code. And I'm gonna comment, this is the, I'm gonna have a commented version. And then I'm gonna have the one that we did live. Copy this. I'm gonna comment on this one, and this is the live version. So it's gonna be there. With the same link that you used to join the webinar today, you can watch the recording. Awesome. Thank you for the great feedback, everybody.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Right.
I'm going to message Juan. So, because I know he can't hear me.
All right. One last thing. It takes a couple minutes for the video to become available. Lisa, are you ready? Does your mic work? Yeah, go.
Yeah. Okay, my mic works, but
I can't hear your mic.
I know.
Or maybe
my mic works, but Juan can't hear me. But that's okay. I want to just finish things off.
Oh, my bad.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm so sorry that I forgot to put my mic on or mute myself in the beginning. But thank you so much for sticking with us, guys. Next week, we're going to have an event on what is conversational UX. And then the week after is going to be all about basics of intro to business intelligence and business analytics. We do have web development classes all over the world that are starting very soon. So I did put, if you guys are ready to apply and get started, there is a bit of pre-work needed before you can enroll in Ironhack. So I put here, you'll see in the green button to just apply there. And that way, if you have any more questions, you can talk with your admissions manager. Once you apply, you'll get a link to schedule with admissions. So that's a good place to get everything answered. The recording will be here on our Crowdcast link that you can rewatch. Just fast forward for when I'm not on mute. And thank you guys so much for coming. We're going to hang up now. Hope to see you guys apply and hopefully come in the course at some point. Have a good one, everyone.